We were asking about documents about James Comey and his book deal. Now, James Comey, as you know, is the former FBI director fired by President Trump last year. He leaked documents or information from his Comey memos, as they're called, to the New York Times to get a special counsel appointed to target President Trump. That's not my characterization. I'm almost quoting his testimony verbatim to the Senate Intelligence Committee. So we're obviously very interested in why James Comey had a vendetta against President Trump and whether he carried his obviously distaste for President Trump with him while he was FBI director. Now, the problem that Comey has is he took these Comey memos out with him from the FBI, and as I said, leaked them. It turns out some of them may have had classified information. We're not sure if any of that material was leaked, but he certainly wasn't allowed to take any information, let alone classified information, away from the agency. Reminds me of what Hillary Clinton did and should have been prosecuted for. But also, he also is signed on to a major book deal. The book is coming out soon, but it's supposedly on ethical leadership, which I guess is ironic, given the conduct of his top agency officials that we've uncovered since then. He received $2 million for the book. And typically, when you are a senior government official like him, you're supposed to submit that proposal or his proposed book draft to his agency, in this case the FBI, to make sure he's not saying anything improper, meaning revealing classified or other sensitive information that the government doesn't want released. So we want to know what's going on there. Now, we have experience, and we've seen publicly about others who are whistleblowers who have been really hamstrung by this review process. You may know Tony Shaffer. I think they shredded during the Obama administration 10,000 copies of his book, the Pentagon did, after giving him the runaround of what he could publish and what he couldn't publish. So we want to know if James Comey had any special deals with his allies in the FBI to get around this review procedure. Especially given the fact that he was already allowed to steal records from the FBI and then leak them to the New York Times without any legal consequence. So that's why we've asked for the records, and we've been given the stonewall again by the Justice Department and FBI for these records. And we've also asked about this testimony I've talked about, the coordination between the FBI and Mr. Comey on his testimony. We've already sued the Justice Department for coordination it might have had with Comey on this testimony. You may remember the testimony he talked about wanting to get a special counsel to target Trump, and is very controversial. Now, if the FBI and Justice Department, and then in this case Robert Mueller, unleashed him and coordinated with him, I think that public has a right to know that, and it would be certainly a scandal of the highest order if the agencies were working with James Comey to target Donald Trump in this testimony. So these are why we're suing for these records. Judicial Watch doesn't just rely on the media to leak the information out to the American people. We don't rely on Congress, who is always fighting, or sometimes fighting for this information and can't get it, or it's withheld and they don't do anything about it. We do it ourselves. So this is why we sue in federal court for these records. And Judicial Watch has more lawsuits on these issues than anyone else, I can guarantee you. Now, do I know it for a fact? No. But I know we have at least 26 lawsuits on Russia, Comey, Mueller, all that universe of issues, leaking, unmasking, FISAs, dossiers, you name it, we have it covered. And we've been getting a stonewall from these deep state controlled agencies about most of these inquiries that we've been having to pursue in court because we've been getting the stonewall. On Comey alone, we have 2 lawsuits about his memos. We have a lawsuit about the metadata associated with the creation of his documents, because some people think, I think quite fairly and not cynically, that the memos were written after the fact and not when he said he wrote them. These are about the memos he supposedly wrote after his various meetings with President Trump. And we also have, also tied to this kind of this book issue, a request and a lawsuit for documents about how he accounted for classified information he may have had in his person, and the protection and the dissemination of those records. There's a big problem when you have the FBI director walk out of his agency after he's fired with classified information. How do we know there was classified information? Because of Judicial Watch lawsuits. We sued the FBI for the Comey memos. We sued specifically for the Flynn memo that was famously leaked in part to the New York Times. We're representing the Daily Caller News Foundation that sued for all the memos. There were others that are suing for the memos too, also in this case, including, I think, CNN. And unfortunately, the court just told us we can't get the memos. You may recall a few weeks ago I told you, because I thought it was an important development, and we had encouraged the court to do this, the court in this case took the memos and read them, or wanted to read them himself to see if they could be released. And it turns out he thought they didn't. I don't buy that decision. The court issued the decision, I think, last week, and he also said he met in secret, behind closed doors. We weren't able to attend the meeting, with the representative for Robert Mueller's operation, who also convinced him to keep these memos secret. Now, what's the legal issue here is James Comey wrote these memos as CYA memos to paper the record in his jihad against Donald Trump. I have no doubt that was the case. He gets fired. He leaks the information that he took improperly to get Mueller appointed. Then they go back and they take the memos from wherever they were in the FBI, and Mueller has them, and he's now investigating supposedly Donald Trump for obstruction related to the Comey firing. And therefore we're not allowed to see them because they're law enforcement sensitive, among other things. They're part of his investigation. Obviously that can't be the case. If that were the case, every government file that potentially gets vacuumed up in criminal investigations subsequently can never be seen by the American people. Typically under the law, unless the record is created as part of a law enforcement investigation, is it protected as part of a law enforcement investigation? The fact that a law enforcement investigator was subsequently interested in a government document isn't a reason to keep it secret. So needless to say, we disagree with the court. We're appealing it on our behalf and on behalf of the Daily Caller. But it's unfortunate that we've had to battle the Justice Department and the FBI and the Mueller team, who the Justice Department is going to bat for, on these Comey memos. They're protecting James Comey, which leads us to question whether they're protecting him on the book deal, and whether they coordinated improperly with him on the anti-Trump Senate testimony I talked about. And again, it's Judicial Watch doing this aggressive legwork and asking these tough questions, and we're willing to go to federal court, thanks to your support, to do it. So there's no one else doing that type of work as comprehensively as Judicial Watch is. Any issue that you're concerned about related to Russia, you can bet we either have a FOIA request for or a lawsuit.